Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade.
We chronicled the distinct memories of our childhood in our book, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s, which takes you on a notably historic journey through that often forgotten decade. We also want to hear about your experiences during the 1950s. We will feature guests whose special stories of that decade will bring to mind magical moments of reflection, some with tears, some with smiles, but above all, a good dose of laughter.
We would like you to chat with us as we bring to mind the sights and sounds so familiar to that time in history. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let me get my sister in here too. There we go. Now we have a better screen to introduce you. We're so glad that you joined us for this is our 75th 1950s Fun Chat, Jackie. And my goodness, haven't we had a variety of wonderful guests who have shared stories of their life from the 1950s. It's been marvelous. And that's what is so fun with doing this 1950s Fun Chat. I shouldn't say doing, recording, streaming, broadcasting the memories of folks whose memories need to be saved and cherished. And so this is our way of helping them do that. And plus, at the same time, sending it out to the world through our recording platform of StreamYard. So here we are, this is airing a day before Valentine's Day. And we have a sweetheart of a guest who will be with us in just a few minutes. But Jackie, lead us into that chat, will you please?
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a sweetheart of a deal as far as information, folks, because I'd like to have you look to the bottom of the screen. You'll see www.whilethewindmillwatch.com. Now, that is a very informative website. It is a website where you'll find information about the book, While the Windmill Watched, the vendors, the authors, the events that we might be participating in as well as this 1950s Fun Chat. You will see all the previous ones, chats are found there. So click on any one or all of them to get more information about the 1950s. Then, as you're perusing the screen, look in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a beautiful North Dakota sunset that wraps around the book. And also, you will see in the lower right-hand corner of the book a little white spot. Well, that is a very important white spot in that it lets the reader know that this little book won the National Independent Press Award in the regional nonfiction category as a distinguished favorite. Now, this book was published in April of 21. Last year, April 22, this award was given, and the book is very, very happy to have that on its cover.
Exactly.
Yes. So, without further ado, as has been said, I will introduce you to Mary Esther Harper Pullin, who was born in 1940 to Harmon and Helen Harper and raised on a farm near Cromwell, Indiana. She attended 2 years at Purdue University, West Lafayette, Indiana. So Mary Esther and her husband, Ron, have been married for 63 wonderful years. Their union has been blessed with 2 sons and 1 daughter, resulting in 2 grandchildren. Today, Mary Esther and Ron reside on a farm near Waterloo, Iowa. Mary Esther, welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat.
Thank you.
Hi, Mary Esther.
You're welcome.
Both of you.
Thank you. This will be fun. So, Mary Esther, as the decade of the 1950s began, you would have been about 10 years old.
Right.
However, the decade of the 1940s influenced your 1950s experiences and attitudes. So please take us back into the time preceding the 1950s. Now that's a long period of time. See if you can whittle it down and maybe tell us about a few different areas, please.
Okay. My parents bought the farm in 1941 where I was raised. And my dad and had a partner, one of his fraternity brothers, and they got in business together. They had Harper and Martin is what it was called. And the partner went into a trucking business. His side was a trucking business. My dad's side was the livestock area. And then my dad also started a seed corn company. So that was just, after the war. Well, that was in 41. The war wasn't quite over with then. But then my dad immediately bought a flock of Hampshire sheep. And that started us. He was born and raised on a farm with sheep. Sheep paid his way through college. And so, that was a natural for him to have a flock of Hampshire sheep. Also, I would like to tell you that in that era, I was the oldest of 4 children. That was up to the end of 48. And then in 51, my mother had a set of twin boys. And in 55, we had another little brother. And in 56, we had a sister. So all in all, there were 8 of us kids. And so that's the part of the family part. But one of the big events that really affected our life a lot happened in 1948. The Walt Disney Corporation out in California decided that they wanted to make a film in Indiana about a little farm in Indiana, and it was called So Dear to My Heart. It was about, it was the 1903 era. And this grandmother raised her grandson. His name was Jeremiah Kincaid. They had a flock of sheep in this movie. And one of the ewes had a set of twins. One of the lambs was white and one lamb was black. And she would not own this black lamb. So little Jeremiah Kincaid took over the care and feeding of this little black lamb. At the very same time, going through their small little town in Fakes, Indiana, there was a train that came through with a racehorse. It was the most famous racehorse in the whole world, and his name was Dan Patch.
Yes. So
anyway, this little Jeremiah named this black lamb Danny. Danny was his name. And this movie was all about him taking care of this little lamb. This was a mischievous black lamb, and through all of raising this lamb, he learned about valuable lessons about love and dedication and all that kind of thing, and ended up taking, after this lamb was like a year old, taking it to the county fair, the Pike County Fair, which is a county fair in Indiana. And it did not win because it was black. But the other sheep in that class were all just regular white wool sheep, as we would say. But the judge gave him a special award of dedication for this black lamb. So this is not the end of the story. The lamb was very mischievous. It did all kinds of bad things. It ran away from home. They put a little wagon chain to it and tied to it, and it ran under the clothesline, tore the clothesline all down, ran through the screen door and all that. So this was all in the movie, this part of it. Well, so the movie ended, and the lamb, they actually did most of the filming out in California. The lamb ended up at San Luis Obispo University out in California. And out there, this film was all over the United States. People, it was all across the country. And people found out that this lamb was at San Luis Obispo, and they kept going there and causing creation on the campus and pulling wool out of this ewe. And actually, it ended up to be a ewe. In the film, there is a ram. I mean, we know what a ram is. Yeah. And they had more than one sheep in that film, but Danny was a ewe. Okay.
And Mary Esther, is this a true story?
Yes. I'm telling you, it's a true story. And in fact, this afternoon, I got on the internet and looked up So Dear to My Heart. Burl Ives was the star of the show.
Yeah.
And Bobby Driscoll and Luana Patton. Okay, so this created such a stir. And since the film had been supposedly in Indiana, they called Purdue University and talked to the professor who was head of animal science and said, can we send that out to you guys? Because it was supposed to be filmed in Indiana anyway. So the Indianapolis newspaper, she came to Purdue University, and the Indianapolis newspaper got wind of it. And guess what happened at Purdue? The very same thing happened at Purdue. Caused create stir, traffic jams, too many people all over the campus. And so after a while, the professor of the animal science department called my dad and said, would you take this off our hands? So I remember that it was in the spring, because the 4 of us that were family members at that time, kids, had the measles. And so we weren't allowed to go outside. But my dad drove down to Purdue, picked the shoe up, brought her home. And guess what? He brought her in the house. My mother had a fit.
Why not?
You don't have sheep cute grown sheep in the house.
Yeah.
So that's still not the end of the story. And this was nationwide, of course. My dad got a phone call from the Jergens lotion company. And they wanted to show a farm family, a farm wife who worked on the farm, how she used their product on the, Jergens lotion. So lo and behold, they came to our place and they took pictures of our family. I have one on my wall. It was in the Successful Farming magazine in 1950. It was in the Ladies' Home Journal. And there's like 4 pictures of it. And also Danny, the black lamb, she did mischievous things at our house too. She turned on the water faucets. She opened the gates. The sheep got out. And all that summer, we were taking her to the movie theaters that were showing that film, so other people could see her. We also had people stop by our house, but that was the big thing that's kicked off the 1950s for our family.
Yes. Did Danny
people can't top that?
Did Danny ever lamb?
Yes, actually, and my husband can tell you that too. I think he was at our place when she had at least 2 times she lambed, but she never had a black lamb. No, and I have pictures of her, the real sheep, with our family. So I can verify all of that.
Can you tell us how long she lived?
I really don't know. I mean, if it was like 10 years old when I was 10 years old. I don't know, probably a couple or 3 years, and then she had a special place when she passed away, we buried her and all that. But yeah, that was quite an event.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
Did that, with having her in the house, or as a well cared for lamb, and probably she was a bottle lamb to start with if her mama
Oh,
didn't.
yes, she was in the movie. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So then did that endear you more to having sheep or to being around sheep?
Listen, I've been around sheep all of my entire life. In fact, everything I talk about tonight is going to be about sheep. Because and it's in my DNA. I can't help it.
Who are you?
Our family grew up that way. And as I went through 4-H, we had 4-H projects of sheep. I can remember my first county fair. I was scared to death. At our county fair, I was very small. My family's not real tall or big or anything. And I was small for my age. And here I am with a pen of 3 ewe lambs. Now, at our county fairs back then, we did not have a nice arena to show our sheep. They were shown outside. All the livestock except the hogs were shown out on the grass.
Did you have to have the halter broke?
No, we didn't. The halters weren't even a thing back then.
Okay.
Anyway, I was afraid that they'd get loose from me showing and run all over the fairgrounds, But anyway, that's how it started out. And so I was in 4-H for 10 years, had sheep for 10 years as 4-H projects. Yes.
And then when you were showing, was that the county level or did you go to the Indiana State Fair?
our family showed our sheep all over the country. We were like Ohio State Fair, the Indiana State Fair, Illinois State Fair, Illinois county fairs, the North America, or no, the International Livestock Show in Chicago. We were a sheep family from get-go. I mean, that was it, you know. That's and that led us off to a story of actually how I met my husband, because
Okay.
yes, in 1955, my father had a minor heart attack in the fall. I remember it was after the state fair, and then in 1957 he passed away in June of 1957. Left my mother widowed with 8 children. Of course, we went to the state fair every year. In 55, the state fair at Indianapolis, there was a dormitory for the 4-H kids could stay in it. And my sister and I stayed the whole 2 weeks at the state fair. And one night, the chaperone came to our bunk and said, "Hey, you 2 girls, you got to get up. It was 3 a.m. You have to head over to the state fair. Your dad called. He's got a car coming to pick you up." And they were filming the Today Show. The Today Show was being filmed at the Indiana State Fair that day.
Well,
And
you're
so-
just a natural to be on the fun chat, Mary Esther. You're the camera.
Oh, it was so exciting. And Jacqueline Cooley was the person who did it. Well, the Day Show is in 3 parts. They do one for the East Coast, one for the Midwest, and one for the West Coast. We did not have TV at our home until after I went to college. But my grandmother lived in Florida, and they happened to tune in to the Today Show that morning, and she saw us. What they did, we went over to the sheep barn, and they had flatbed trailers. And so we had champion ewes that year. And so they put us up on this flatbed, and then had the grand champion steer and the grand champion barrel. And we went around the racetrack like that for the Today Show. That was in 55.
Oh,
Did
goodness.
the reporters do hands-on with the sheep?
I don't remember that part of it because it was all filmed on TV. You know, that TV cameras just kind of passed us by.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
But we were on the show, you know, as
Mhm.
like that, you
Yeah.
know. So, but anyway, to go on with the state fair business, in 58, well, my father passed away in 57. We went to the state fair that year. The next year in 58, I was going to head off to Purdue to go to school. I had graduated. And my mother was at the state fair, and the Pullin family happened to show over at the Indiana State Fair that year. And she hired my husband, but Ron Pullin, to come to take care of our flock of sheep because I was going off to school. And so that's how we met at the Indiana State Fair. Yeah.
And then did he continue on at your farm to?
He
as a
was at our farm for a year. And then he and I got hooked up, you know, and so we were married in 59 and had, well, I went off to Purdue and I was there for 2 semesters, the first year and then to the next year. And then we moved to Iowa in 61, I'm sorry. But if you want me to talk about my high school years, because that was really quite the thing was, you know, in the summertime, it was detasseling corn because my dad had a seed corn company. It was showing sheep at the county fair, going to the state fair, and all these other fair businesses, you know. I was a cheerleader in from junior high through high school. We went to a very small school, like those little town schools. In fact, in our high school, there was like only 72 people, and that was freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. Now, in another story about that was that we didn't have TV at our house, but my aunt and uncle did have TV, and they lived a ways away, and they had me babysit their children like on Saturday night when they would want to go out. And so this one Saturday night, it was the Indiana State basketball championship game. Now, back then, there weren't districts. The little schools played the big school. We did during the football or basketball season, we played only in county schools, so they were small. But when it went to tournament time, it was the big schools against the little schools against the big schools.
And basketball has always been huge in Indiana, but I think it was especially more so back then, wasn't it?
Let me tell you, my husband Ron will tell you, when he came to live at the Harper house, breakfast, lunch, and supper was basketball.
Yeah.
Because we did not have other sports. We didn't have wrestling. We didn't have football. They had baseball in the summertime, but it was basketball.
Yes.
I mean, it was. Okay, so this Saturday night, I went to babysit at my aunt and uncle's. It was the state championship game. It was the night that tiny Milan, Indiana beat Muncie Central for the state championship, and the movie Hoosiers was made on that film.
My goodness.
Yes.
You just have filmmaking in your background.
Yeah.
Yes, that was quite the deal.
Well, Mary Esther, in high school, did you have time at all to go roller skating or to do other activities with your friends?
Well, I'll tell you what, back then, it was my sophomore year in high school before we were allowed to have a junior senior prom.
Oh,
They were not allowed before then. We did that. And on Saturday nights, they had sock hops at the next, our neighboring school had sock hops. So you went to a sock hop. And that's back when Elvis Presley and Boone, what was his?
Pat Boone.
Yeah. They were the popular ones. And my dad was very upset about Elvis Presley. He did not like the way he danced and rounded. My parents were, they loved to dance, but it was the ballroom dancing type thing.
Yes.
You know? And the jitterbug from the 30s and so forth. And he thought that was obnoxious. In fact, he was going to appear at the Coliseum at Fort Wayne, which was only 30 miles away. And my sister and I wanted to go, and he said, absolutely not. We were not going to go see him perform. So, but yeah.
He certainly introduced a whole new form of music in America.
I know. And it was great, actually, when you look back on it, but it was so different. It's just kind of what some of the music is today that we kind of frown on, you know, some of the actors and the characters and this and that, you know. So I can't imagine what he would have thought about today. I mean, that's, you know, the entertainment.
Yeah.
And he wasn't alive when the Beatles came to America, was he?
He died in August. Well, what did they say? Because his daughter just passed away.
Elvis Presley, yeah. Well, the Beatles were here, wasn't it, in 1963?
They were on TV. They were on TV.
They were on
Ned
Sullivan show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think he appeared maybe when I think about some of the shows that they've had way back when, he might have been on when he first, you know, was becoming popular. But yeah,
Sullivan.
Yeah. So yeah, Pat.
Well, anything else you can think of in the 50s that you might want to share with us before we move on?
Well, let's see. I'm looking at my list here. I told you about the Hoosiers and the Today Show. Yeah, it was, like I said, a very small school. In fact, in my graduating class, I mean, I can say this, I was valedictorian, but my husband says, Mary Esther, there was only 12 kids in your class.
Well, you were still valedictorian. At least you weren't the only one.
Yes, and our community really looked up to our family. In fact, 3 years ago, we have an alumni association at my school that I graduated from, Cromwell High School, and so anybody that ever went to school there, we have this once a year get together. Except the last 2 years with the pandemic, they discontinued that, but now they're going to do it again this year. And they featured 3 years ago. They featured our family, and they ran the movie during the
Mhm.
the get together, the banquet. Was so dear to my heart, and talked about our family and how much we meant to the community.
Oh, wonderful.
neat.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And you probably wonder about my connection with Purdue University.
Yes.
Because my dad on Sunday afternoons, many times we would go down to Purdue because he was still involved with the livestock that they had down there. They had a flock of Southdowns, and their big thing was to take the pen of 16 to the Chicago International every year.
Mhm.
And he would kind of help them along with, picking out the right ones and this and that.
Mhm.
And so anyway, when I was 5 years old, I had to start to school because my birthday was in September. So I was only 5 when I started in first grade.
Oh.
And my folks got me up one morning and said, Mary Esther, you're going to go to school here. And I looked right at him and I said, no, I'm going to go to Purdue. I was 5 years old.
You had been indoctrinated. So that
I
makes
can't
sense
help
then.
it. It's in my DNA.
Yeah. I was wondering how you had graduated from high school so early. So that's the key right there. You started
Right.
school early. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I graduated.
Did you learn to read with the Dick and Jane series?
Yes, and Puff and Spot.
Yeah.
Right.
The book.
They
Right.
needed to have a lamb in it, didn't they?
Yes. When I went to school, the teacher had 2 classes, like first and second grade together, and third and fourth grade together. That kind of thing. But I wouldn't give that up for the world. And I'm so glad, we weren't poor, but we weren't rich. And everybody else in our community was the same.
Mhm.
There weren't classes of people back then in our community. But,
That's the way it is portrayed in our book as well, While the Windmill Watched.
right.
All the same.
Our friends were all the same. I mean, none of us had a lot. And in fact, my mother and I, and my sister, who was just a year younger than I, we would trade clothes. You see Ron in the background. Anyway, we had like 3 wool skirts, and we could all 3 wear the same one,
Your mother too?
Oh yeah, my mother was small. I
Yes.
had a picture. I do have that picture that was in the Successful Farming. It showed my mother and us kids that they took those pictures, and there was several pictures that they took of us.
Did you learn to sew then?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Mhm. Tell us about that.
That was one of my main projects in 4-H was sewing. I had an aunt, my father's sister, Mildred Scarhorn, made all of her clothes and her husband's clothes. Now he was on the Indiana State Fair Board. I mean, he went to she made his suit, she tailored his clothes. She was in the Make It Yourself with Wool contest. I don't know how many times she won that. And so when my sister and I both wanted to sew, and every year my mother would say, we're not doing this again, because we had one sewing machine. And we were always at the last minute get our outfits together, and she would always say, we're never doing this again. But anyway, I did win the county fashion review and got to go to the state fair fashion review one year. Oh yeah, here's a story about the Indiana State Fair. After I graduated in 58, that summer at the Indiana State Fair, my uncle asked me to be in the office down there, and I could, help with customers and whatever. And at the Indiana State Fair, the sheep, there was 2 different levels in the sheep barn. The one level where the purebred sheep were, and then underneath that was kind of like a basement area, and that's where the goats were. Now, this is one reason that I am, and I'm going to admit this, I don't care for goats. In order to be paid for working in the sheep barn, sheep barn help had to watch the goat show because nobody else would be watching it.
Oh, that's too bad.
Unlike what today is in a little livestock show, where the goats are pretty popular.
Yeah, right now that's one of the biggest shows in our county fairs are the goat shows nowadays.
Oh yeah.
In fact, a lot of fairs there are more goats there than there are sheep actually.
Huh.
But
Mary Esther, I wanted to ask you about when your father passed away, and your mom and the children were staying on the farm. Were you all able to work together as a family to accomplish taking care of the sheep? Did you raise crops as well? Did you
Oh, yeah.
continue on with the seed corn business? How did all that come?
Well, we had a hired man.
Okay.
Okay, when my dad passed away, my mother took over the business then we bought a small mill, feed mill. And she went every day and worked at the feed mill. And this was, oh gosh, through high school, it all worked out that we could all take care of each other. In fact, the smaller ones always say that I was their mother, their second mother, you know.
Yeah.
But then when I went off to college, there was a nice lady in our community who would come in and take care of the youngsters who were not yet in school, you know, and we did have a hired man. My mother had to give up the seed corn business and kept the feed mill going. My brothers were growing up. They got into 4-H and FFA, and they could help with the livestock. And then my father had farmed 5 different farms, because with seed corn, you have to have a place to grow all this and to promote your business. And so it was my grandparents had 3 farms, and then an uncle had a farm, an uncle of my dad, and then our farm. And so it kind of worked out, the brothers, the people that we had hired help and that kind of thing. But, and they got along.
They
You know, they did. Yeah.
Well, in transferring from a resident of Indiana coming to Iowa, to Northeast Iowa, Waterloo area, how was it hard to make that change?
Not really, because immediately I got involved in 4-H.
Oh, yeah.
As a 4-H leader, and Ron was a 4-H leader. In fact, I just year before last, I got my 50-year pin for being a 4-H leader.
Good for you. Congratulations.
And actually 70 years of my life I spent in extension. I'm still on the fair board. I'm still on, you know, the youth committee. I still judge county fairs. And my favorite job of all is the Iowa State Fair, where I do the announcing in the sheep barn. And I've done that for 24 years.
Yes.
So I can't get away with sheep is the thing in my life. You know.
Bet. You bet. Has it always been Hampshire sheep?
Well, we had the Suffolks. My dad bought a flock of Suffolks.
Okay.
He got in fact, and this was probably early 50s, and he bought a carload of the CPR, Canadian Pacific Railroad, out in Washington or Oregon or wherever they were, Idaho, wherever, and they came by rail to our town, and so we started our Suffolk flock in 1955. I believe I'm looking at this award. We had the champion Suffolk ewe at the International Livestock Show in Chicago.
Good for you.
And one of the years, our Hampshire ewe was the champion Hampshire ewe at the Suffolk show, or the Hampshire show at the International Livestock Show.
Yeah.
One year in 55, we actually had the top champion ewe and champion ram in both breeds at the Indiana State Fair.
Oh my goodness.
And then after my dad had his first heart attack in 55, then they dispersed the Suffolk flock at a dispersal sale over in Illinois. And so we were just down to the Hampshires. And then when Ron came and was at our house, we had a production sale, which also then, eliminated some of our sheep. And so it made it more manageable after that. But yeah, for my whole life. Yes.
Did you shear your own sheep, or did you hire a shearer?
We had somebody shear my own sheep. Now my husband just handed me a note. He wants me to tell about my dad.
Okay, good.
This is kind of hard.
Yes.
He went to Purdue, and he was an AGR, Alpha Gamma Rho.
Yep.
And in 1936, at the International Livestock Show, he was the top individual in the livestock judging contest.
Cool, Mary Esther.
His total score from 1936 to 1960 stood nobody made a higher score for all those years.
Oh, he knew what he was
It
doing.
was somebody from Purdue that broke that score. But back then they judged draft horses and mules, and they had all kinds of livestock that they had to judge. My dad judged county fairs. He was only 43 when he passed away, but we would go with him in the summertime when he would judge county fairs. And so livestock judging has been in our family too. In fact, my children, Doug and Deb, were both on the Iowa State livestock judging team, and in 4-H, they both times. In Doug's case, they won the state and got to go to Louisville, but they judged Denver, Denver and Fort Worth, and then Kansas City.
So, okay, Mary Esther, what's the future of Pullin Hampshires?
Well, I'll tell you what. The first Pullin, and this is on my husband's side, were purchased in 1921.
26.
And excuse me, Deb's correcting me. She's saying 26. 1926. And we have flock books back so we can prove all of this. This year is our 97th year to raise Hampshire on the Pullin side.
Yes, wonderful. So did one of your members of your family sort of act as the geneticist?
Oh yeah, Deb is she's our shepherd right now. Our daughter Deb. She comes every morning, every night, and she takes care of the pedigrees and all that, and she takes the sheep to the shows. Last year she ended up taking the sheep by herself to the Minnesota State Fair. Both were after State Fair this past year. Ron and I both got COVID. We had been tested. I mean, we had been, had all the vaccinations and everything, but we did get a touch of it. So we couldn't go to Minnesota. She took the sheep up to Minnesota and showed them. And at the national show in Louisville.
Okay. Yeah. Are you still on a circuit, on a show circuit with two different fairs?
We used to do Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. A couple of years ago, we had to give up Wisconsin because it overlaps Iowa. And I'm down at Iowa trying to help run the sheep show at the Iowa State Fair, and we can't. And then they're at Wisconsin, and then, the whole thing just doesn't work. So now it's just Iowa, Minnesota, and Louisville, the national show in Louisville.
Were you sad when the Chicago International closed and then North American International picked it up?
Yeah, we were delighted that somebody else picked it up.
Yeah.
So that was in 76. And so we have been there all but 2 years of the switch over to Louisville. Yeah, we've been down there. And of course, we have sheep friends all over the country. I mean, we can't help it. When I was a kid growing up, this is another thing. We would wake up in the morning and there would be somebody on the couch at our house, and it could have been Perry Ewing from the Sheep Breeder magazine or Guy Hilton from he had a sheep magazine also. They would be traveling over to the East Coast, and then they would stop at our house, and they knew they could spend the night at our place, Yeah.
Very cool. So, Mary Ellen, this is beyond the 50s, but it still has to do with sheep. I understand you have been involved in the Make It Yourself with Wool contest. So how did that all come about?
Yeah, for 30 years. My mother, when I moved to Iowa in 61, my mother was the district director. Mother-in-law, not my mother. My mother-in-law was the district director. And she had held that position for 15 years. Janine would tell you, I can't even tell you how long the wool contest had been going on. But then when she decided she didn't want to do it anymore, there were a couple other ladies in between, but then I helped with that for 30 years, 30 times. I helped with the Make It Yourself with Wool contest. And now I sadly say that we don't have it in Iowa anymore. It still goes on at the national because they just had a great national Western livestock show out in Denver, and they have the finals there for the wool contest.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in December.
No, Denver's in January.
This is January.
No, I'm thinking about the National Rodeo.
Oh yeah, that's in December because we went to a wrestling meet. Our grandson was in Las Vegas. They have that in Las Vegas, the rodeo finals too. But the Denver show it's just gotten over with actually. Yeah. But Janine
what-
knows about the wool contest.
What a rich history, Mary Esther. What a rich history you've shared with us. And viewers, we hope that you have so enjoyed listening to this fun chat. Mary Esther just has these wonderful clips of information in her mind, and the legacy that you have of being in motion pictures is phenomenal as well. So your story, Mary Esther, has really transmitted over the entire country of Pullin, Hampshires, and with the Harper family. It's amazing story, Mary Esther.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My father's picture hangs in the Hall of Fame at Purdue, in the Agriculture Hall of Fame. My father and his two brothers. Earl Butts, who used to be the Secretary of Agriculture, he lived in our county. He introduced my parents to each other in our county. And when I went to Purdue, he and his wife, since he was the head of the animal husbandry department there at Purdue, they would ask me to come and be their kitchen help when they would have guests in for dinner in the evening, So there we knew a lot of people. And I know you want to wrap this all up, but I want to thank you for inviting me to do this.
Oh, our pleasure.
It was fun waking up at night and thinking 70 years back.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies.
Oh, our pleasure.
Well, I think Janine might have another question for you, though.
Oh,
Mary Esther, of everything that occurred in your life in the 1950s, can you narrow it down to one fun item that you recall that you did in the 1950s or that affected your life?
marry my husband.
Good answer.
Yes, we were married in 59. So that was, there was the sad part with my dad passing away. And then there are all these other things before that. But then I got married the love of my life in 59. So
do you think you ever could have been happy with not being married to a sheepman?
no,
Yeah, I know.
I mean it. No.
Yeah.
God
In your
created-
blood.
God created Ron for you, and you
Right. It was meant to be.
Yes, exactly. Well, viewers, we're so thankful that you had an opportunity to listen to this precious story of the 1950s. And really what Mary Esther has included in this fun chat is, and I think she hit the nail on the head when she said, I've awakened in the night and thought about memories of the 50s. And that's what these fun chats trigger when we ask people to be our guests. And not only that, but these fun chats become a document, a recorded document for the entire family to have that legacy of history. And so for Jackie and me to be able to record these 1950s fun chats is, it's fun. I think it's in our DNA, and we talk and win.
Well, thank you for doing it, because it has to be a big job. And your book.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm going to have to buy your book.
Yes,
Yes, please do.
we agree. We agree.
And what was it? Fred, my husband, just passed a question to me. He's Mary Esther. He said, what is it about sheep that draw people to sheep in your mind?
The shepherd part, I think. If you're a religious person, and not that was our deal, but sheep, it gets in your blood. I mean, you're taking care of the sheep. It's just like right now as farmers, we're feeding the world.
Yes.
But it's the physical part of the connection. My sister, I wish you could interview my daughter. She knows every sheep on our farm, and they come up to her and talk to her, and she talks to them. We had one lamb one time when I was a little girl. Her name was Last Drop. She was born in the dead of Last Drop. She was born in the middle of winter, and she needed extra help to get going.
Yeah.
There was a whiskey bottle there somewhere close by, and my dad used the Last Drop to put into the milk, and we named her Last Drop.
And that spurred her on to her life, huh?
Yes, yes. Well, viewers, we want you to join us next week when we have another great guest who will be chatting with Jackie and me on this broadcast. And please feel free to go to, as Jackie introduced in the beginning, go to our website that you see strolling at the bottom of the screen, because there we have archived all of the previous
Great.
1950s fun chats, and you'll find such a variety of guests that
I
surely
bet.
there'll going to be at least one that you'll want to listen, and really it'll spur your memories on too of having
Great.
lived then. So
Good.
until next time, Jackie, can you close up our program today, please?
Well, yes, I have a couple more things to say, and that is, viewers, you see the little red button that says subscribe. Please touch that one, and also the blue thumbs up button. We'd
Which
like
one?
to know that. We'd like to know that you have been with us, and tell your friends, even your relatives, about the 1950s Fun Chat. And so until next time, toodaloo.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.